This is Bob, and he's about to execute Order 66. Wait, what? But before we get to that, we're gonna travel back in time to follow Bob on his adventures all over the galaxy and his training in the clone facilities. But first, we have to start all the way at the beginning. Just like all the other clones, Bob's story begins on Kamino. This is where all the clones are created. If you look around on Kamino, you'll notice that everything's white, even the Kaminoans. So that's the color I'm gonna use for the first build. For this build, I'm gonna be making a room for Bob. I'm starting by building a base out of white plates. Then I tiled off the entire floor. I added some walls to the build and then tiled off those as well. Finally, I added a door and a bed to add for sleeping. The build is finished, but it doesn't feel complete yet without a Kaminoan. So I bought this Starfighter set just so I can get this figure. Then I gave her this super cursed looking newborn baby clone, named Bob. So Bob has just been born and is now brought to his room for the very first time.
Good night, Bob.
Yo, good night, homie.
What the fuck?
For the next build, I'm gonna skip ahead a few years to when Bob has started his training as a cadet. The first part of this training consists of target practice. So for the second build, I'm gonna make a target range. For this, I'm mainly using light gray pieces. Then I started to make the walls. I'm using these snot pieces to add a bit more texture. Then I finished everything off with tiles. And finally I added this target piece. This is Commander Brody, and he's here to mentor the cadets. To pass this test you have to hit the target at least once. Hawk came up first. He hit the target one time, which means he passed. Then it was Slick's turn. He also passed. And finally it was Bob's turn.
Bob?
Oh crap. Bob overslept, so he arrived an hour too late for his test, but Brody still allowed him to take his shots. And he missed. But Bob was not a quitter, so he kept trying again and again and again, until he finally managed to hit it. Now Bob's ready for the final test of his training. And that is the battle simulation test. This test is the same as the one Domino Squad did in that Clone Wars episode. I started by building a black platform. Then I added some slopes and elevated the back. Then I tiled up the floor in the same pattern as in the Clone Wars, by making these squares out of black plates and filling in the gaps with white plates. Now I'm gonna build the side, using the same pattern as I did for the floor. I added these walls to take cover behind. And a flag at the end for the clones to capture. Now it's time to add the droids. The test is ready. Let's get back to Bob. As you can see, Bob's had quite a glow up. Now I'm gonna get Bob ready for the test. I gave him some armor and his blaster. I did the same for his squad mates. In the TV show, they wore these transparent helmets, which I recreated by using this Resistance Trooper helmet. Now, Bob and his squad are ready to take their final test. When Brody gave the signal, the droids immediately started to fire on the clones. Luckily, all of them got to cover in time, but now they were trapped, until Bob realized the droids had stopped firing to reload. Bob then came out of cover and fired back. Soon, his squad mates joined in as well. Together, they captured the flag and completed their training. Now Bob's officially a clone trooper. Around the same time, Obi-Wan Kenobi arrived on Kamino. Yo, can I borrow your army?
Yeah, sure.
The clone army is now part of the Republic, who immediately sends him to Geonosis. For Geonosis, I gathered all my dark orange pieces and started building a platform. Geonosis is mostly flat, so we're pretty much finished already. But that's too boring, so I'm adding a bunch of rocks to it. I also want to add a vehicle to this. So, I bought this command station set. This set also includes 3 Phase 1 clones, which will definitely come in handy later. Now it's time to build this command station. Now I'm gonna add them to the build. For this mission, the clones are gonna need their armor. Now that they're armored up, they're ready for battle. Bob and the squad were tasked with defending the station at any cost, which was pretty easy at first. They hadn't seen a single droid in hours. But then Slick noticed something strange on the scanners. He wanted to report it to the commander, but the separatists were already here and started shooting them. They took out the commander, Bob, and Slick. The last man standing was Hawk. He managed to take out 2 droids before getting defeated. Then the separatists went to finish off the wounded. Just when they were about to finish off Bob, they heard a sound coming from behind them. The Jedi introduced himself as Cool Beans, but before Bob could thank him, a second wave arrived. But the droids were no match for the clone and Jedi, who managed to defeat them easily together. Despite losing his entire squad, Bob still managed to finish his mission. For this, Bob got promoted to Sergeant. For the next mission, Bob got sent to Kashyyyk. I started off this build by making the floor out of different shades of brown. Now I'm gonna build a mountain on the side. And finally I'm gonna add some trees. Bob and Cool Beans got sent to Kashyyyk to look for a missing Jedi. After a few hours on this planet, they finally managed to find him. But it looks like he's dead. So Cool Beans went to check his pulse. Then Bob noticed a bomb next to the corpse. So he pushed Cool Beans to safety and got caught in the explosion. Bob survived the explosion somehow, but lost his right arm. And Cool Beans got captured by the separatists. When Bob woke up, he thought it was all just a bad dream. But then he looked at his arm and realized it wasn't a dream. Then a clone entered the room to give Bob his new armor. Bob asked the clone what happened to Cool Beans. The clone tells him he's been missing for years. After hearing that, Bob quickly armored up, assembled a squad and went to look for Cool Beans. The first place they went to look was Kashyyyk. Here they ran into commando droids. After defeating the droids, the clones found their commander, who reveals after some interrogation that the Jedi is on Hoth. So for our final build, we're gonna build Hoth. One scene I really like in Empire Strikes Back is when Luke got captured by a Wampa and put in his cave. So for Cool Beans, I'm gonna build a cave prison. Now I'm gonna add some extra snow to the build. I also added this alarm system, which they can use to call for reinforcements. Another scene I really like in Empire is when they're in the trenches. So I built this trench and added everything together. Bob arrived on Hoth and found the prison holding Cool Beans. He noticed that the prison was lightly defended. So he ordered his men to take out the alarm droid. Before the other droids could realize what was happening, it was already too late for them. Bob then rescued Cool Beans from his prison. And just when they were about to leave the planet, Bob received a transmission from Coruscant. All the clones then turned their weapon on the Jedi. With that, the Clone Wars came to an end. Bob then got back home and received a new set of armor. Stormtrooper.